Hello everyone and welcome back to the weekend recap. I wish I was welcoming back the Bundesliga. That'll be next weekend, folks. It's all happening. They love to give their players a proper break. Anyway, I hope you had a great weekend. I went for soup dumplings, then hit an escape room, and we only went and escaped from the damn thing, didn't we? Victory is sweet. All right, let's hit England now. United versus City was a game of substitutes, a game where the manager's influence could be felt in the changes that they made for each side in that second half. The power of the bald manager was on display. For City, it was bringing on Jack Grealish as he finished off an attacking move with a header at the back post, a great ball across from who? Kevin De Bruyne. Of course, you could have guessed that. Everything leading up to that goal was no surprise. As time went on in that second half, City began to take more control of the match, but following that goal, United woke up, began to open them up more, and thanks in large part to that threat that Garnacho was providing down the left flank. Garnacho was looking like a supreme talent, isn't he? And we'll speak more on him later, but first, we gotta talk about that United equalizer. I know, we gotta talk about it, guys. Great ball played through by Casemiro. Rashford and Bruno both running onto it. Rashford clearly offside, Bruno not, and it was Bruno who provided the finish. My gut feeling was that it would be called off. If you guys are familiar with the offside rule, which you are, you're all smarter than me, then you'll know that a play can be offside without the offside player touching the ball. If a player affects the play for defenders, then the referee can call it as offside. Here's how it reads. A player can also influence without touching the ball and so should be given offside if the referee feels that their offside position has interfered with an opponent. For example, by preventing the opponent from playing the ball, obstructing a goalkeeper's line of vision, etc. Those are just a couple of the things they can look to, but yes, Rashford didn't play the ball, but defenders would have been drawn to him rather than Bruno initially, thus influencing how they played it. But the key wording here, I guess, is that it's up for interpretation for the referee if the referee feels part of it. So I guess the referee felt that Rashford didn't affect the play. He runs up to the ball from an offside position, intending on hitting it himself before Bruno calls him off. I don't know, it smells kind of strange. I feel like you shouldn't be allowed to escort the ball for your homie from an offside position, you know? Not to mention he affected Ederson and Walker's positioning as well. If Rashford isn't there, all focus goes on sweeping for Ederson or closing down Bruno if you're Walker. But how are they supposed to know what to do here? I thought that was a bit curious, and I really expected that one to be called back. But that aside, I know some United fans will be furiously typing as I speak right now, but that aside, I'm not taking anything away from that performance in general in the second half from United. I think that goal was charitable from the officials. I think it was a mistake. But that second goal was a stunner. Another stunning attack down United's left where Garnacho was a big problem. Wild to think when Walker is marshalling that side and an out of sorts Cancelo is on the left. But anyway, a great ball of which Garnacho spins and squares to Rashford to tuck between Ederson's legs. Another great counter from United. Good heart to get right back into this match. And once again, Garnacho is looking like a ridiculous talent. Not just the ability on the ball, but the mentality that kid has. And yes, tons of credit to Ten Hag for the changes that he made and how he turned things around in this game. A competitive United is seemingly back in the Premier League. 2-1 the final there, with an asterisk on the scoreline. It's got to be said. There was another derby this weekend in the Premier League as we saw the North London derby go down on Sunday evening. I'm sad. I missed this one. I'm sorry. I had a family thing and I only caught the last 10 minutes or so. I caught the highlights, of course, but I'm not going to speak on this as if I saw it, What I can say is that Arsenal's win away to Tottenham was the first time they have done so in 8 years. And I also got to see that idiot Spurs supporter kick Aaron Ramsdale in the ass. That guy's a loser, that's for sure. The first goal was a clanger from Lloris. That's vintage Lloris, by the way. We haven't been treated to a mistake from him for quite a while, it feels like. Cross from Saka, and it went in off of Lloris's palms. Cross was deflected, I'll give him that, but it still wasn't a great look for that French legend. The second, however, was Martin Odegaard giving Lloris Euro 2016 final flashbacks. A strike from distance, low and bending into the corner. Lovely stuff from Odegaard, which has been the norm from him this season. 2 goals and 3 assists in his previous 4 appearances. Nice to see him find a place in the football world. Chelsea have won. I repeat, Chelsea have won. And Havertz scored a goal. After having a victory in some respects off of the pitch with stealing Mudryk away from Arsenal right under their noses. My man basically signed a lifetime contract. What the hell? 8 years, signed until 2030. But anyway, after doing that off of the pitch, Chelsea won against Crystal Palace at home. And hey man, they weren't that bad either, were they? Some frustration, of course. Rome wasn't built in a day, but definitely an improvement over their midweek loss to Fulham, and just a general improvement overall in their play. I mean, you'd expect them to beat Crystal Palace, right? At least most iterations of Chelsea would be expected to beat Crystal Palace, but this current injury-riddled Chelsea has made a mess of most matches, haven't they? 1-0 the final, a nice game of shithouse volleyball from Kepa at the end to kill time as well. Some of the most attractive attacking football that we saw in England this weekend came thanks to who? Yes, Brighton slapping Liverpool 3-0. What a performance from De Zerbi's men. You know, I was definitely one of those people that was nervous about what would happen to Brighton and Hove Albion after they lost Graham Potter. I knew that De Zerbi played attractive football back with Sassuolo back in the day, but it didn't work out as well with Shakhtar. And so bringing him to Brighton felt like a bit of a gamble, but my God, have they ever been great under the Italian manager. They've essentially taken the components that Potter left behind, but they've added some real bite in the attack. Solly March was fantastic down that right side, while Mitoma was a bit of a nightmare for Alexander-Arnold, Matip, and Henderson on the right side of the pitch for Liverpool, Brighton's left. Matip with an absolute disaster class, by the way. March with 2 goals and an assist against Liverpool, who never really got going in this one. There were moments from Gakpo, maybe their best performer, but you could see that they are really hurting in the attack right now. No Darwin, no Luis Diaz, no Jota, and they're missing Van Dijk at the back. I feel for Konate. He's the only dude that showed up for Liverpool. There are 2 other London teams that are waiting to strike out at the top 5, and those teams are Brentford and Fulham. Well, Newcastle handed Fulham a loss and denied them the opportunity to jump over Tottenham for this match week. Brentford brushed aside Bournemouth with a 2-0 victory. We like Thomas Frank. We support the Frank. Remember last week when I said that we got to keep an eye on Wolves under Lopetegui? Well, they had an integral match against another team that is trying to stave off relegation, desperately trying, West Ham. The fall of West Ham recently. What the hell is happening there? Daniel Podence's early goal in the second half gave Wolves the win over West Ham to put West Ham in the relegation zone and thus moves Wolves above it for now. We'll keep an eye on that race. Forest beat Leicester 2-0. That's a nice result for them, as speaking of relegation, they've jumped out of that zone for now. But for me, the funniest part of the weekend came thanks to Southampton. As they went away to Everton, Everton supporters lit fireworks outside of their hotel to try and give their team the edge over Saints, try to make for a sleepless night. Only for Saints to beat them 2-1 at Goodison and drop this bit of brilliance, a review for the hotel they stayed in. The highlight? Rooms were brilliant, beds were comfy, and the blackout blinds and triple glazing, oh wow. You could literally have a firework display going on outside your window and you'd never know it. In fact, the only rocket we noticed all weekend was the one James Ward-Prowse sent into the net in the 78th minute at Goodison. That's some good banter. That's good, isn't it? And yeah, it wasn't a bad strike either, was it? So, looking at the scores and standings, we have Arsenal with an 8-point lead over Man City. Wow. Newcastle in 3rd, but United are level on points with them at the moment. Truly incredible from United. Nearly level on points with City, despite their early struggles this season. Napoli versus Juventus, what a way to start the weekend. On Friday, Napoli, the leaders, Juve, the team that has been surging after a terrible start to the season. Allegri had them on a run of 8 consecutive wins, and they didn't concede a single goal in that stretch either. That is formidable, isn't it? But Victor Osimhen is a pretty formidable striker, and he found the opener after just 14 minutes. That was his 11th goal of the season, and he later set up Kvaratskhelia, the man who struggled in the first couple of matches since the return, but was in incredible form in this one. In fact, Osimhen's opener came from a rebound from Kvara's acrobatic attempt at goal. Juve did hit back through Angel Di Maria toward the end of the half, and things were actually looking a lot better for Juve in the middle to the end of the first half. They were looking closer to a team that was on an 8-match unbeaten run, and while the opening of the second half was similarly cagey, it all opened up, and that plays into Napoli's hands. Perhaps it was due to Juve trying to find an equalizer, or Napoli shaking off some of the nerve after Juve had brought themselves within a goal. I don't know, but in the second half, Napoli extended their lead, and they extended it, and extended it. Thanks first to a smash from Rachmani, And then it happened. I noticed the iconic Allegri gap had opened up again. I spoke of this in the past, most notably when Benfica played Juve, but in other matches as they were struggling as well. As when Juve switched to a back three formation, there's a massive corridor that can open up between their center backs and their midfield, the aforementioned Allegri gap, as I call it. A Mariana's Trench-sized pathway for attackers to occupy and torch Juve's back line. When you couple that with boneheaded mistakes from Bremer, where he seemed, determined to concede with his silly giveaways throughout that second half, there would only be one outcome: Napoli scoring for fun. You take Allegri's back three and a gap between the defense and midfield, add in silly mistakes from Bremer and the boys, and sprinkle in the absolute class that Napoli has going forward, and it leads to destruction. Osimhen got a second, Elmas got another to score in consecutive matches for the first time this season for Elmas. Kvara ended with a goal and 2 assists, though he also contributed in another in forcing a mistake. It was a stunning performance from their attackers. Arguably one of the most entertaining moments, however, was when Spalletti shadowed Allegri for a handshake, following him to the tunnel. I mean, they had a minor war of words, or a skirmish, I'd say, prior to this game, and Allegri just wanted to get the hell out of there, as anyone would. To his credit, they did shake hands after. 5-1 Napoli. Huge result. Lecce are really putting some form together now in Serie A. They were a team who many had going down, but since November, they've taken care of business quite well. This weekend, they took a 2-0 lead over AC Milan in the first half, the first goal being an own goal from Teo. That was a weird one, while the second was a decent header from Bashirotto. Nice ball in from the free kick, and he rose well. Once again, defending from set pieces was an issue for AC Milan, goalkeeping an issue, as they were against AS Roma last weekend. Now, of course, to Milan's credit, they did dig themselves out of that hole in the second half as Rafael Leão and Calabria brought them level, but that's a frustrating one for Pioli as they have consecutive 2-2 draws. Inter, their rivals, got a win over Hellas Verona, as one would expect when Inter is playing up against a team that, from 18 matches now, has managed to accumulate just 9 points. 9 points, dude. Anyway, it's nice that Lautaro Martinez has managed to find his form, as he has now scored in 3 consecutive matches for Inter. This one, very important, as it gave him the 1-0 win. Lazio were able to bounce back with a 2-0 win over Sassuolo, which was their first victory in Serie A, well, just in general, I guess, since November 11th. Zaccagni with his second goal in consecutive matches, this time from the spot for Lazio. That takes his tally up to 7 for this Serie A campaign. Atalanta had the performance of the weekend, or rather Salernitana had the most embarrassing performance of the weekend up against Atalanta, where the back line was playing at an all-time low. And it's funny because it seemed as if we were going to have a great match in this one. Boga opened things up for Atalanta after 5 minutes, but Piatek and Bulegia combined 5 minutes later to make it 1-1. However, that was absolutely a false sunrise, as the entire Salernitana defense went into the toilet following that, with the first half ending 5-1, man. Goal after goal, it was a pretty dreadful affair for Salernitana, and poor Memo Ochoa in goal for them. For Ochoa in particular, the one thing he had to smile about was the penalty save in the 38th minute, but then again, Coop Miners tucked away the rebound, so not so happy after all. 8-2 was the final in this one. AS Roma, after stinking up the stadium but coming away with a draw against AC Milan last weekend, the brilliance of Dybala and Abraham saw them overcome Fiorentina 2-0 at the Stadio Olimpico. They were certainly helped, or Fiorentina didn't help themselves, I guess I should say, as Dodo made like the dodo and was extinct after just 24 minutes. A yellow in the 4th minute is not a nice way to start the match when you're a defender, and after a heavy touch from Zalewski, Dodo dove in and finished the job with his second yellow. Unfortunate for his teammates. But yes, Abraham setting up Dybala for both of Roma's goals, and what does that win do for them? Well, look at how tight the table is in Italy. I guess Napoli's 9-point lead isn't so tight, but 2nd through 4th is separated by just a single point. 5th through 7th are all on 34 points apiece. We love to see this. More of the same from Serie A. Lazio, Atalanta, and Roma all have 10 wins, 4 draws, and 4 losses. They're copying each other's homework. Spain was missing some of the top teams as they were off to Saudi Arabia for the Spanish Supercup, so let's quickly go through some of the other results domestically. Atletico Madrid struggled against Almeria after their loss to Barcelona last weekend, 1-1 against the side in 13th. Unfortunately for Simeone and the boys, that attack just is not firing. Correa, Griezmann, Morata, I wish them luck, man, because It's not looking good. So many golden opportunities and just one goal to speak of. It's a problem when you find yourself saying, well, it was just one of those days so frequently for a club. I feel for Atleti supporters. One of the most notable matches in Spain was Real Sociedad taking on Athletic Club in the Basque Derby. My man Takefusa Kubo was a thorn in the side of Athletic defenders all match long, and he scored a stunner to make it 2-0 Real Sociedad in the 37th minute. Nice pass to him, lovely nutmeg to take the ball beyond the defender, then a clean finish at the near post. I don't know what it is, but there's something very aesthetically pleasing about a near post finish. Later in the match, he also won a penalty for Sociedad, of which Mikel Oyarzabal converted. Of course, he's a penalty man after all, to make it 3-1 Sociedad and give them the derby win. By the way, this derby is very, very special. Now, we all know Athletic Club's policy for their players. Sociedad isn't quite like that, but even still, 21 players that were on the pitch were Basque. That's very special. That's a true derby. We have some low-key climbers in La Liga, teams like Rayo Vallecano and Osasuna. Rayo went away to Purple Palace, Real Valladolid's home, and got a 1-0 victory. They're first in La Liga since before the World Cup break. Man, sometimes the World Cup feels like a fever dream, doesn't it? Did it really happen? I don't know. Osasuna hosted Mallorca, and they too got a 1-0 win. Meanwhile, the hurting for Sevilla continues. They are well and truly terrible right now. After the hope that came with San Pauli, it has turned to ashes in their mouth. I gotta stop quoting Game of Thrones. It's too much lately. I don't even know why. I'm not rereading or watching the show. It's just a stupid coincidence. But anyway, yeah. San Pauli's time has soured horribly as they lost to Girona and are now sitting in the relegation zone, as you can see here at the bottom of the table. Up at the top of the table, Barcelona and Real didn't play, but they're still up there, though Sociedad is putting the pressure on Real, aren't they? Atleti are 7 points behind them. Let's quickly look at some other results. 3 in particular. The Supercopa de España, the final of one of the only Super Cups that I well and truly respect. I love how they revamped it, PK collusion aside. Anyway, FC Barcelona trashed Real Madrid. I know the scoreline suggests it wasn't that bad of a loss. You know, not an Atalanta versus Salernitana type of loss, but still, Barcelona played them off the park at times, as the Ancelotti magic hasn't been magicking these days for Real Madrid. That, coupled with a nice performance from Barcelona, saw them ease to a 3-0 lead by the 69th minute. Yes, if you were to look at attempts, you might say, hey, Adrian, they were pretty even. But the quality of opportunities were so heavily slanted in Barcelona's favor that they really could have had more than just 3 goals. Gavi scored and became the youngest scorer in a Supercopa final and the second youngest Barca player to score against Real Madrid. Lewandowski with a nice performance in setting up Gavi, then taking one himself. Pedri with the third. Barca are Supercopa champions. Congratulations to them. And with them in the driver's seat in La Liga now, who knows? Maybe all those levers will have paid off and they'll be able to recoup some of that debt, but we'll save that answer for sometime in the summer when the picture is clearer. Over in France, Stade Rennais defeated PSG 1-0 after Galtier decided to leave Mbappe on the bench for 60 minutes. When he came on, PSG began generating more chances for themselves, but Touré had gone in the other direction the 65th minute and put Stade Rennais ahead, and they held on. Really, really poor from PSG. Just one save was made by Mandanda, and that actually blows the title race wide open. Lens are now just 3 points behind them. And in Portugal, Benfica had to come from behind twice against Sporting in what was a very frustrating game that ended 2-2. Sporting didn't do much in the first half, but went forward and got a goal thanks to a cross that banked off of Benfica's Alexander Ba and in. Frustrating, very frustrating. Thankfully, Gonçalo Ramos was able to level before the half was up, only for a fortunate penalty to be given to Sporting in the second half. Whoa, slow down, man. I'm not saying that it isn't a penalty. Don't twist it. It was just fortunate. Antonio Silva trying to get to the ball, doesn't even know that there's a Sporting attacker behind him, goes to clear it as the Sporting player steps in front of him. Antonio sort of bundles into him. Penalty. It's a penalty, don't get me wrong, but one you hate to see, as there was nothing Antonio Silva could have done. One you hate to see as a Benfica supporter, of course. You love it if you support Sporting. But again, Gonçalo Ramos comes to the rescue and gets his second. 2-2 the final, and with Porto trashing Famalicão, coupled with Benfica's loss to Braga earlier in the month, things are getting tight here in Portugal. Benfica's lead now just 4 points. Porto 5 points back. Sporting, Alright guys, that's it. Long video. I really went in depth at certain parts. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, hit that like button for me so I can survive the worst month of the year for YouTubers. Beyond that, I'm Adrian. This is Rabona TV. We'll see you soon. Ciao.